We are already in the midst of the third week of Advent. Can you believe it? And I'm Pat Bergen, Sister of St. Joseph, and I'm here to welcome you into the rest of Advent. But first, I want you to go back to that first week in Advent. If you remember the news, we were hearing stories of mass murders, wars, famine, everything bad that you can think of, and definitely depleting us of hope. It was like we were in the midst of a deserted world, a world deserted of care and tenderness and compassion. And then suddenly, something inside of people said, I will not be controlled by the darkness. And they flashed on all the lights. Everywhere you go outside, it's lit up. As if to say, there is more here than we're seeing. We know there is more and we want to see it. It reminds me of my favorite quote from Thomas Merton. Advent is the beginning of the end of everything that is not Christ. Really? Yes, really. It's the beginning of the end of everything that is not Christ. Christ is love enfleshed. Love wrapped around matter. That's what Christ is. The beginning of the end of all of that. And so as we move into Lent, we're seeing that all of a sudden the lights are going on and our blind eyes are beginning to see, our deaf ears are getting unplugged, our heart is becoming tender. And we're noticing that what we're looking for, we will see. That's what the gospel asked us last week. What did you go out into that desert to see? Well, what did you go into Advent to see? If you're looking for Christ, you'll find Christ. If you're looking for love, you'll find love. Take, for example, when our eyes open, we begin to see corporations, nations, people of all faiths, collaborating in action, raising awareness and making decisions, addressing the global cries of earth and the poor by changing lifestyles, coming up with new laws, changing systems. Our eyes begin to see stories, as on CNN this past week, of heroes. Most of those people in their early 30s who are doing magnificent things to change the whole world. We begin to see Pastime magazines, the one from a few months ago, highlighting children 12 and under who are doing fabulous things, changing the world from a place of tears into a place of smiles. We hear the story of posadas, the Latin tradition of processing through the streets, Mary and Joseph knocking on doors to find a place for Christ. And we see that this year what they did was invited the homeless to walk with them, raising the awareness. Like in Chicago, we've got 65,000 homeless people. Do you know what that did? That rose the awareness in developers, and they started a whole plan to start low-income housing, build low-income housing right here in the city for those people. Or what about the stories of magicians getting trained to go into children's hospitals to play magic tricks and change tears into giggles? And what about the stories coming out of the synod? Stories of mute people who've been mute for generations, never able to tell their stories, finally opening their mouths, finding their voice, speaking of how long they've suffered, being unnoticed, unrecognized, unaccepted, raising the awareness in people of reverence for them, compassion for them, and community is being born, and an age-old structure is being transformed from the bottom up instead of the top down. Yes, all that is not Christ, all that is not love, is beginning to change, beginning to come to an end. If we're looking, we'll see. In Sunday's Gospels, the disciples were invited to go, tell what you're seeing, fill the air, fill all the space with the good news stories. So I invite you for this last 1.5 week of Advent, fill the space of the universe, fill every room with stories of the good news that you're seeing and hearing. Let those mute tongues tell stories, sing, and raise the awareness to singing and dancing in the hearts of all people so hope can live again. Yes, go out. Eyes open, ears unplugged, tongues telling stories, and then come back next week when Sarah will invite you into the fourth week.